Should I wear my hat? Yeah, let me go get
a hat. I'm going to sit here on camera by myself doing my hair, putting it into an Oregon man bun. It's typical of this area. I like having it. It's all right.
Blah, blah.
What the hell's going on?
It's a good question.
I'm glad I'm Italian. I'm not white.
You kind of are.
Why does it have to be the big chicken? Why does it have to be the big chicken?
Why do you have to say it like that? I was right, and you were racist.
It's Britney, bitch.
I still have a belief that Sasquatch is out there, but that doesn't make me crazy. And you give me that face, and this is my issue. You're a questionable person.
This is a podcast where Rick, a Generation Xer, and Tim, a millennial, come together and try to find answers to our changing world.
Break it down with Rick and Tim. All right. There we go. Okay. Boom. I put that's way too tight, but whatever. Let's do this, bitch.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Rick.
Hi. Hi, Rick. Normally you say, hi, my name is Rick.
And I'm a gay man.
Yes, you are. Look at that. Oh, wait, we're matching.
What's up with that? Why are you wearing a gay shirt?
I went to Pride, and this was the shirt that my wife bought me to wear to Pride because she knows I like Star Wars. And she's like, oh, it's a Pride Star Wars shirt. Why not? Oh, wow. Shrunk a little bit in the wash, and now it's hugging me a little bit, but that's okay.
You're woke.
I guess you could call me that.
You Antifa?
I'm woke to a degree.
Who's more woke, me or you?
Probably. We're about the same.
You think so?
Probably. Mm-hmm. I'm not like full woke, but I don't even know what that means. Why are we categorizing it? Who cares?
So my name is Rick.
My name is Tim.
And this is...
Break it down.
With...
Rick and Tim.
Hey.
Hey.
And this is our Goodbye Biden episode.
Yeah, it is. Bye. Goodbye. Bye, Felicia.
Tim is going to take the lead. He is our social studies teacher.
I did some research on this topic.
And so,
and I've been following it because I have to, because I'm a social studies teacher, and it's a lot.
And he really breaks it down quite nicely.
Sure, I do. I guess we're going to jump right into it. Ready?
Today's podcast is called Bye Bye Biden.
So when did I see Joe? I saw him in 2020 in February. And he looked like Fire Marshal Bill.
Oh, my back is... Let me tell you something! Oh, my God. What?
Fire Marshal Bill. That's what he reminded me of.
Let me tell you something!
Do you know who Fire Marshal Bill is?
No, I don't know who Fire Marshal Bill is. When was Fire Marshal Bill popular?
In the 90s.
Was he? How old was I?
Do you know who played him?
No.
Jim Carrey.
Oh, well, that explains the energy. Goodness gracious.
So when I saw Joe Biden in person in February of 2020, that's what came to mind was the Jim Carrey character, Fire Marshal Bill.
Yeah, he kind of looks like it.
Because he was skinny like that. His face looks like it's been burned off.
I think it was Ozempic.
It was before Ozempic was as popular as it is now. He never had a weight problem.
No, he didn't.
But nonetheless, he came off as a greasy car salesman.
Do you think
I didn't
Donald
like him.
Trump is on Ozempic?
I wish he was. Might help. One zipped him in the ear. He missed that shot. Oh! Ozempic's a shot, by the way.
Oh, okay. I
Now
get
you
it
get
now. Now I get it.
Okay. Oh, finally, my joke.
Yeah, it went over my head. There you go.
Fire Marshal Bill. That was
another
Joe Biden.
shot he missed would have been a better delivery line. Anyway,
what?
I said another shot he missed would have been a better delivery line.
Set it up again.
No, I don't want to.
You could do an instant replay.
Instant replay, Rick.
Yeah, so I didn't like Joe Biden when I saw him. He just came off as a greasy car salesman, used car salesman, and blech. And he was there along with Elizabeth Warren for the CNN town hall. I liked her. She was busy taking pictures with people, and I was in line to get a picture with her, but she had to leave. Something came up that she had to go talk on. She was on CNN. So I never got to see Kamala in person, but Elizabeth had my vote. And then, of course, as we know, Joe Biden got the nomination.
That's right.
And the rest is history.
That's right.
What did the Backstreet Boys say to Joe Biden when he's leaving office?
I don't know. I don't know, Rick.
Bye, bye, bye.
That's that's the wrong band.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hey, Siri, who sings the song Bye, bye, bye?
NSYNC sings the song Bye Bye Bye.
See? I was wrong.
Thanks for asking. I'm doing fine.
I did not ask you, bitch.
You and her.
I don't
have
like
an
her. I
interesting
don't like you, Siri.
relationship.
Siri, you're a
More
dumb
like
idiot.
a relationship.
I know. On tonight's podcast, we're going to be talking about President Joe Biden. And
Joseph R. Biden.
What's the R stand for?
I don't remember.
Robinette.
Robinette? Really?
Yes.
Where does Robinette come from?
No, I think it's a straight thing.
Hey Siri. Where does the name Robinette come from? Oh, she gave me the cold shoulder. Bitch. She heard me.
I think history is going to be kinder to him than his own party is actually at the moment.
Why do you think that?
Because of his age, because of the things that he's done. And if we are able to save our country and democracy, then the history books are going to be kind to him.
Well, I think that's a great segue into our first kind of look at Joe Biden. What are his biggest achievements? Should we just jump into it?
What's that?
Oh, your little USB thingy that you have hidden somewhere in here. You probably said it for, 5 minutes?
That was a perfect
Turned it on.
segue. It's right
Yeah.
there.
There, yeah.
Right there.
This thing right here is stupid. Device that the internet probably algorithmed to you.
It is funny.
It is funny. It's fun. For those of you who are listening, what we are looking at here is a USB device that you plug in, and it's very intrusive because you put it in someone's house or somewhere into a USB slot somewhere that's powered, and every hour it screams at you like a goat.
A few months ago, Tim came over.
It's been in my house for a few months is what he's telling you right now.
Came over to my place, scared me. I was, I think, in the backyard. And I told him I'm going to get him back. He's not going to know when, where, how, but I'm going to get him back. And I finally got him back by putting this in his plug.
Yeah.
And it went off at 60-minute intervals.
I heard it one time, and I was like, what was that? And I went outside and looked but I was taking out the trash. But I definitely walked a little further out into the street to look to see if there was anything going on. I was like, I don't know where that scream came from.
And then the second time?
I didn't see it. I didn't actually. I only heard it once.
Oh.
The next time I was doing the dishes and I was cleaning up the counter and I noticed it was plugged in and I was like, what the hell is this listening device?
Oh, you thought it was a listening device?
I didn't know what it was. I was just like, a paranoid person would think it's a listening device. But it's probably some stupid thing that my wife or kids have or something that Rick would put up. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, this is a Rick gimmick. And it was.
There's one that's a cricket. That would be annoying.
That would be very annoying.
Because you would never, find
Yeah,
it.
no.
You just think there's a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was great.
There you go.
Interruption.
Yeah.
By the way, it was $10.
Yeah, that's a good advertisement. So send us a free one. Okay, So let's take a look. Let's take a look real quick because here's what I also want to do today. I want to look at Joe Biden's record, and I also want to look at Donald Trump's record and kind of see how they compare a little bit. And we can do that right now. Yeah.
Okay.
For those of you who are watching
And listening.
What we're going to do is we're going to talk about Joe Biden's tenure in, everything, politics, and compare it to Donald Trump's tenure, mainly just to see how they compare.
And then
we're going to watch a video.
a clip
of a debate.
The debate that changed America.
The debate that changed America.
Yeah. That shocked a nation.
I watched the debate. You didn't watch the debate?
No, I've been saving it for you.
Oh, like the actual debate?
Yeah, but we're just watching a few minutes of it.
Oh, sure. I don't. Do I really want to relive that? Maybe I'll let you watch.
Yeah,
I've relived it. I've seen it. It was tough.
Oh,
it was.
The
It
poor
was.
man.
It was tough. I remember. The reason why it was tough is because we all kind of knew it was happening. We all knew it was happening. And it was like
you can hear it in his voice. He's declining.
Well, yeah,
he's dying.
He's not.
He is dying.
The following clip is from a 95-year-old great-grandmother.
Anything you want to say about Joe Biden at this point?
Yes. I respect him. I am very grateful for the man that he is. And I am truly sorry that he is having some concerns. He has been a very worthy president. Kind, compassionate, knowledgeable. And to see him have to say goodbye is difficult for me because I'm 95, I have limitations, and yet I do have people that applaud some of the things that I do. I just hope that Biden is well and can proceed in some capacity to help this mixed up world.
Thank you.
Well, and let's go back to the reality check. The presidency, the office of the presidency ages you. Look at any president from the beginning of their first term to the end of their last term, and they are a different person by 10, 20 years.
It made Barack Obama gray.
It did.
Okay, so I can think of one accomplishment that's pretty profound for Robinette comes to mind, and that is the infrastructure and wanting to rebuild our bridges and highways. And he put our favorite Buttigieg into that position by being the Secretary of Transportation.
Right. So what? How is that? What's what?
That was an accomplishment.
An accomplishment of Joe Biden.
Yes.
Are we in
Huge.
the accomplishments?
And it created,
are we talking about accomplishments right now?
Yeah, because we were comparing.
That's right. Okay, well, let's start out with that. I have a list.
Okay, that's my only one.
You got a list. Only one.
Yeah.
So your thing is to bump Buttigieg right here. So he put.
Oh, I want to give him a bump.
I see that.
I think he's a top though.
You think? Oh God.
I think Chaston is the first lady in that bed.
Oh, but okay. There you go.
Seriously though, the infrastructure thing created jobs. It helped all the states. And that's the one thing that comes to mind.
Let's talk about. So let's go.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Because you got the. I don't have. Okay. Then there's the boo boo. I don't think he necessarily should have pulled out of Afghanistan as fast as he did. I think that should have been more of a slower, more gradual evac than just pulling out and leaving all our equipment and helicopters and.
Okay.
MVs. That was a little, oof. But he was set up for failure by Trump.
Much like what you're throwing at me right now. There wasn't a lot of organization to the Afghanistan pullout.
Yes.
It was just kind of thrown together and just all spewed out all at once.
Yeah, that was a blemish.
Wasn't organized or sectioned or
why the rush?
Have a beginning or an end. Exactly why not just wait until it all comes out sequentially.
The evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful, no matter when it started, when we began. It would have been true if we had started a month ago or a month from now. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television.
Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning, and we'll talk about those things.
Are those two things in your list?
Yeah, of course they are.
Oh.
I did my research, Rick.
What about
Jesus?
Israel committing genocide with the Palestinians? Is that in the list?
not necessarily.
That's another boo-boo.
But again,
they're calling him Genocide Joe.
So again, you're hurling all of these things out just before we even get into.
But I don't have notes, so that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. But I'm just
smart.
telling you, hold on, save it, insert it where necessary. There will be places where you can throw this in because we're going to go through Joe's tenure here, and it's a timeline, if you will. So instead of just throwing it all at me, going, "He did this, this," let's break it down. God damn it! Happy Pride, by the way. I see we're both kind of in the Pride.
Quality.
Now, much like you said last time, Rick, Pride should not be a month thing. It's definitely not Pride Month. But we are celebrating Pride because it should be all the time. There you go. Plug.
Well, your Pride.
All right.
Pride.
Yeah. So let's begin. Joe Biden, good God. Born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Let's start at the very beginning.
His dad was a car dealer.
1942. He was a car dealer? Really? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. He taught law.
Okay. Car dealer and taught law.
No, Mr. Biden taught law.
Joe Biden taught law.
Until 2008. See, well, also as a senator, he also was a teacher.
There you go. That's interesting.
Professor Biden.
Okay. I care mostly about what he did in politics. So let's just go from there.
When did he become a senator?
1972.
The year I was born.
There you go. Look at that.
Yes. And his first wife and his young daughter, who they both died in that car accident, they got to see that. Unfortunately, he was sworn in at his son's bedside because the boys were hurt in that car accident.
There are a lot of questions that viewers might have right there about everything that you just said. So let's go through it. Okay. All of that word soup. So let's go back to there's just no chronology. No chronology. We
got the Biden stutter right here.
Right there. Exactly. Right there. Oh, that's
mush mouth.
I want to talk about where he graduated from the University of College of Law, Syracuse. Elected to Newcastle City Council. That was his beginning of politics. Right? So he has been in politics since 1970. Right? So how long has that been, Rick?
54 years.
There you go. 54 years? Jesus. It has. So he's been in politics a long time. Donald Trump, how long has he been in politics?
Just the 4 years he was president.
Yeah.
Before then, he was a pussy grabber.
Exactly. He published The Art of the Deal in 1987. So in the 1970s, when Joe Biden was getting into politics, Donald Trump inherited his family's real estate business. So that's his career. But then he wrote a book. He published The Art of the Deal, and then in 2004 he began The Apprentice.
Who knew that there was such a monster lurking in the shadows of our television sets?
Now, in 1972, Joe Biden was elected to the Senate from Delaware. And it makes things easy because he was there for a very long time.
At just 30 years old, Joe Biden was sworn in as a senator from Delaware, one of the youngest in U.S. history. He did it at the hospital bedside of his two sons, who had survived the car crash that killed his wife, Nelia, and 13-month-old daughter. Representing the state of Delaware for 36 years, he first set his sights on the presidency when he was in his 40s, making an unsuccessful bid for the Oval Office in 1988, followed by another attempt in 2008, before joining Senator Barack Obama's ticket and ascending to the vice presidency. For Biden, the third time was the charm. At 78 years old, the man who came to Washington as one of the youngest senators became its oldest president.
What we want to talk about is what has he done there. So what did he do? 1994, Violent Crimes and Control Law Enforcement Act, Violence Against Women's Act in 1994, Comprehensive Crime Control. So he was tough on crime. And that's kind of what his legacy was in one aspect. He mostly stood up for like women's protection and children protections. He had in 2008, he had the Protect Our Children Act, aimed to address the online exploitation of children And that's important because the internet was coming about and child porn. And that's a time that shocked us all, so I'm sure we needed some legislation around that. I wonder if that coincides. Joe Biden, what he's really known for is advocacy for women and protection women. He's tough on crime. He passed a lot of tough on crime laws aimed at like protecting women from like abuse and protecting children from online predatory stuff, which is good.
How could he do all that when he's busy sniffing people?
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know about the sniff.
Whatever happened to that? They were just like he was sniffing people. And
it's just one of those things that was weird.
MAGA was really behind all that. Whenever he'd always put his hands on people and like he's
a touchy-feely guy.
He stopped that.
He did. I'm sure because people were like, dude, Joe, knock it off.
Yeah. Stop touching me, Grandpa, Fire Marshal Bill.
Well, and I'm sure that his team was like, dude, people are focusing on it. You need to not like go in for a sniff. Like, what the fuck? Because, I mean, let's be real. That's kind of what he did. You would watch him on the TV. He'd get up right behind somebody, grab him, just... and you're just like, God, why, Joe? What are you doing? Arms. Yeah, it's
Grandpa.
creepy, right? But he passed a lot. Well, that's the thing. He passed a lot of legislation protecting those people that he sniffed, children and women. You don't see him sniffing a lot of men. His nicknames. Some people talk about him as like a...
Sleepy Joe?
Okay, well, let's go back before we get to Sleepy Joe. The first thing that I want, people associate him with like somebody who is a survivor of tragedy. So what was his tragedies?
Well, he lost
his
wife,
and his baby
daughter.
Right?
Naomi.
So in what was that, 1972? Yeah, there was a car wreck. His wife and daughter. His daughter was very young. She was like a year and a month. And his two sons survived, but they were severely injured. So there's a lot of trauma around that. And then his son, Bo, died, right?
Yeah, cancer.
And
they believe it was from having served in Iraq.
Yeah, sitting there next to the the burn pits.
He was very handsome.
He was. Well, and he was rising in the political ranks.
Very good looking. His daddy, Joe, was very good looking when he was younger. I mean, he could have sniffed me and I would have been and sniff lower, sir.
Oh, boy. That's interesting.
Bo became a secretary, attorney general for a state. And so did Kamala. And that's how the two of them became really good friends.
Oh, there you go.
And they would talk every single day, sometimes more than once a day.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure that there's going to be conspiracies about that and what they're talked about and things of that nature.
If there was any sniffing going on.
Oh, I'm sure.
She was in her prime. He was in his prime.
You just never know. And at some point, you're like, you know what? Good for them. At least they're enjoying themselves.
Meanwhile, the other son,
that's
Hunter.
The other Hunter. He's he sniffed other things.
Oh man!
But also, and he is a tragedy, and he went through addiction, and addiction's a very real
ugly thing.
It is. It sucks.
But thank God for the photos, because that thing is like, oh
my!
Oh boy!
You want to know what's even more sick?
What?
That
it was shown on the floor of Congress by Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That's our girl, Bo.
Look it up.
His widow.
Put it on the floor.
Bo's widow hooked up with Hunter.
That's messed up.
You didn't know that?
No, but at the end of the day, too, it's not really my business.
Well, when you're in politics, it's all brought to the forefront.
Guess. Sure, it is. And that's the thing that's sad, too, is that, like, through all that, it's all thrust into the limelight, and so it's like you can't make a mistake. And one kid is just like, F it, I'll just make all the mistakes. So that
I do have empathy,
show the world
empathy towards Hunter because he is in his brother's shadow.
Yeah,
and that is a huge shadow.
Right.
Bo was the favorite. Bo was the star, even though I'm sure Joe would never say it.
Right.
It's hard when you're.
And we could also talk about Donald Trump's children. Right? And, where their tragedies.
I would rather party with Hunter than those Trump kids because I know it's coming my way.
Oh, my God. Jesus, the noise it makes every time you smack the table.
That's some serious
But you're right. I think he's probably more real. I wouldn't want to hang out with Trump Jr. or Eric.
No, because they would take all the cocaine.
Right. My favorite is when Trump Jr. Like people deny it. Like there was do you remember when he was on TV, just cracked out of his mind?
Yes.
Right. That
awful.
Clip was crazy. He was just going crazy, and his nose was up and
eyes were like barely open, and he.
Want a news show that parties?
I literally did not go to sleep on Friday night.
Watch Cocaine News with your host, Donald Trump Jr.
The cocaine addict who happens to be the son of the president.
Right, he was ranting.
Yeah.
It was nuts. The next nickname I want to talk about is Amtrak Joe. And I really want to talk about that because the reality of it is that the Amtrak situation is a tragedy as well. He didn't do a lot of really good things for the rail company, even though you would think that he would, like his infrastructure and everything. I want to give him some leeway there, and it's a good way to show how the presidency actually works, because what it comes down to is the rail companies, when Joe Biden came into office, were going through a lot of change. The Trump administration had just passed a bunch of deregulations. Right? Instead of regulating the rail company, we're going to take away some regulations. And some of those regulations were ones that had passed by the Obama administration. But then Trump came in and like struck them down. And they were things like putting on like safety equipment, like safety controls. And then there was another one where it was there was a rule that you had to have an engineer and a conductor in the train, but then Trump was like, nah, just one. You only need one person. And so, they changed it so that like rail workers can't take time off unless they request it. Like, I think it's like 30 days in advance. So like if they get sick, they have to go to work. It's obnoxious. There's a bunch of, and the reason why is because when an industry is doing poorly, regulations are there to protect the consumer and to protect the employees, right? Make sure that the companies aren't doing anything shoddy. They're cutting corners. They're not doing things that are going to cause harm. But if you take those regulations away, then you can cut costs. And so the Trump administration said, well, the rail companies aren't doing great, so let's cut those protections and those safety measures that the Obama administration gave or required, and it'll boost the industry. And we're talking about things like train length. I believe it went from like 150 cars, it changed it back to now it can be like 300 car lengths long. It's insane, some of these regulations. And then when Joe Biden came into office, those regulations were already there, changed.
And that's why I had all those train accidents.
Right? And that's why we're having all these train accidents.
The MAGA people are blaming Biden.
Well, here's kind of why. Because the rail workers were on strike. They went on strike, which is what they should have done, because these regulations were like, hey, we're causing wrecks. East Palestine, kaboom. They call them rolling bombs, right? When we transport like hazardous material and such. And Joe Biden, and it goes back to whose side are you on here? He, citing damage to our economy, told the rail workers, you can't strike. So he had Congress pass basically a law striking down their strike. Crazy. Those deregulations went into effect and the workers did not get what they wanted, and it was a mess. I don't even think they really came to a fair agreement either. So thanks, Joe.
And here comes the train that he tried to make sure didn't continue to run. No, that's the commuter. All right. No. That's what. But folks, look.
But I wanted to also go back to the importance of recognizing that a lot of things that presidents deal with when they come into office isn't necessarily writing their own legislation. It's dealing with the legislation that's going into effect and that they have to direct and that they have to like implement.
Yeah, it's what they inherited.
Nuts. Exactly. It's the inherited
mess.
Policies and the mess. Yeah.
Like Afghanistan.
It's always a mess. Afghanistan was a mess. And yes, Afghanistan sucked. That could have been done better. Straight up. Right? It was, we have this on the books that we have to pull out Afghanistan by the state. Great. We're just going to pull everybody out, kashunk. And we're going to tell the Taliban, if you harm one American, then bad things are going to happen. And they harmed, what was it, like 15, 18, 19?
I don't know the number.
Yeah, there was a bombing. Killed some Americans.
People don't have an issue with the decision to order troops out of Afghanistan. It is with the way that this president ordered it done. There were children being killed. There were people hanging off of Air Force jets that were leaving. And you're saying that you guys are proud of the way that this mission was conducted?
Proud of the fact that we got more than 124,000 people safely out of Afghanistan? You bet.
And it was a mess. And on top of that, I do believe that it's a very poor evacuation. They should have done it like a tiered thing. And we just kind of left a power vacuum. And of course, the Taliban just kind of was like, whoop, we'll take it.
13 U.S. troops died.
13, there you go.
One explosive device detonated, causing the death of our troops. And that was in 2022.
Right.
Just 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And of course, MAGA just seized that.
Right. But on the flip side, Joe Biden has done a lot for our community. Coming out of COVID, our unemployment rate was pretty high. And I will give Donald Trump this. Going into COVID, before that, the unemployment rate was very low. But again, he inherited a lot of policies from the Obama administration that helped him out towards that. And he was doing... He was deregulating a lot of stuff. So industries were hiring people because they could. And a lot of those people were immigrant children. Chick-fil-A, I'm looking at you. So I'm serious. With a lot of those regulations, like deregulations, companies are able to get around, safety loopholes. So they're able to hire like undocumented workers and stuff. And the way they get around that isn't like... Technically, they're not following the law because they know their workers aren't giving them the right credentials, but they hide behind the idea that the law says that they can't investigate that. They just have to take their employees at their word, which is an interesting strategy. It's kind of like plausible deniability. Well, I can't look into it. I can't run those numbers. I can't run that data because the government says I can't. So I'm just going to take this kid who looks like a 16-year-old, but he's got a social security number that says he's 35, and I'm going to take it as his word that he's 35. And I can't question that because the government says it. But the reality is that's crazy.
And then the kid gets killed in a meatpacking factory.
That is a true story. Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder what you're eating when you're having a hot dog.
Right. So many jokes that we're not going to make because we're not those people. All right. Deregulation and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the way it goes. When you have a conservative in the office, they put in a lot of policies that deregulate the industries. And then you get, and what happens is the economy does really well, but the workers and the poor people suffer. Right, because you see more disparity in, class. Then a progressive comes in or a Democrat comes in, and they work to regulate again. So it's a back and forth: deregulate, regulate, deregulate, regulate, back and forth. And we're in a regulate kind of term coming out of a deregulate Trump. And Joe's done a pretty good job of regulating, I think, for the most part. He's made some messes. The board is a mess.
He hasn't fired a lot of people like Trump did.
No, that's the other thing. If you look at like his record if you might even call it loyalty. If you look at his record on loyalty, his people have stuck around.
Yep.
Right? How many flippin' speakers or whatever, how many press secretaries has Donald Trump had?
45.
That would be hilarious.
Josh Earnest, Sean Spicer, Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Oh, I remember John Spicer.
And Stephanie
he was fun.
Grisham. So Josh Earnest,
Sean Spicer came out and yelled at everybody. How dare you tell this president that his crowd sizes are small?
Okay.
They were huge.
Rick and Tim forgot about the blonde fembot, Kayleigh McEnany, who defended Donald Trump's racism during the pandemic.
Last July, President Trump declared himself the least racist person there is anywhere in the world. Why does he use racist phrases like the Kung flu?
The president doesn't.
Coronavirus, right?
Kung flu, yes. Kung flu.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
She's
God, she's ugly.
Well, how dare
God.
you? How dare you?
Her face is ass. That wonky eye, and then that
you're an ass,
and that shadow, her makeup. Oh God, you cannot make ugly pretty. It just looks like you're putting makeup on a pig.
My.
You're mean. You're a mean
person.
person.
She's a bad person. Remember, I have the right to make fun of bad people. We talked about this on our podcast.
There you go. We did.
She's a bad person. Now she's the governor of Arkansas.
I will just point out that she got kicked out of like an Applebee's or something.
Joe Biden has gone through too.
There you go.
We had the redhead.
Yes.
Psaki. Jen
Psaki.
And then we have the black lesbian.
Is that how you have to say it every time?
There's a band called the Scissor Sisters.
And what? Oh my God. Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre.
All right, so we have Jen Psaki, who then jumped ship from Biden's administration to MSNBC, and she's a good fit over there. She brings a lot of knowledge. She's a anchor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we have now Karine Jean-Pierre, our homegirl.
Mm-hmm. This is your homegirl.
She's our Jenny from the block.
There you go.
In more ways than one. Okay. But she handles those guys pretty well.
She does. She does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like compared to what we were used to.
Oh, God.
It's much more tame. Because, I mean, you only have one crazy person screaming at her, and that's What's-His-Face from Fox News. And it's nuts. It's funny. Yeah, so...
Our press secretary briefings have not been a show anymore. With Trump,
that's right.
You never know what they were going to say or what they were going to do.
And he held them weekly.
Just a train wreck.
It was a weekly thing. You'd just sit there and you'd be like, what the heck are they going to talk about this week and how bad is it going to be?
And there's that one clip during the pandemic that was just so bad.
How can the president bear no responsibility for the almost 200,000 lives lost when he downplayed the virus initially and he knew that how contagious and deadly it was? I don't understand how that can...
The president never downplayed the virus, once again.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic.
That was insane. Right?
And that poor girl having to stand there and defend the president, what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. All that stuff. Mm-hmm. So going back to Joe.
Wait, before you continue.
Okay.
Based on everything you were talking about, Biden's fumbles with the train and then Afghanistan pulling out, he is admirable when it comes to his staff.
Yes. And if we actually look at what he's done in office currently, we know that when he came into office, we were in the coming out of a pandemic situation. And I think we all can agree that the United States handled it terribly. Mm-hmm. So we were looking for someone who could get us out of this mess, and we were done with this Trump experiment, and we needed someone who could just get us the fuck out. And sorry about the swear. And it was Joe. And so what did he do? He passed a huge rescue plan act that wasn't just meant to prevent us from getting sick by expanding access to the vaccine, but it was also meant to keep small businesses afloat. And the crazy thing about it is that we put so much money into that, like $700 billion. And I think somewhere around $200 billion, it was lost to fraud.
Oh yeah. People took advantage of it.
Right. So when you talk about you talk about on the Republican side, poor people taking advantage of the system. Well,
so do
the business people take advantage of the system, and all these people were like, "Oh, look, great! Uncle Sam is going to right. It's going to be easy. I'll just take this COVID money and
pocket it.
Or what I'll do is I'll take it, and it's supposed to go to my employees, but I'll just hang on to it, and I'll pay my employees something, or so. I'll find the loophole. I'll find a way around it, and that's a third of the money. So, is the problem with our people who can't get a job, or is it the problem with the people who make the jobs and go, well, I'm just going to pop this money even though it should be keeping people afloat? It's nuts. It's this trickle-down economic crap that
doesn't work.
Bullshit. Anyway, he passed that. So from whatever perspective, that's a lot of money that's keeping us afloat. And it did keep us afloat. It kept a lot of good people afloat. It kept a lot of good businesses going, because even though there was massive fraud, there was still a lot of good done. And so he helped us out there. That was a good. I mean, do you think Trump would have done as good a job?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And then he passed all those infrastructure bills. So he was investing a lot in like the roads, and I've seen that around even here. Like, they're paving all the roads all over the place now. It's crazy. I see it in action.
I remember that people that were voicing against this in the Senate.
Sure.
And then were taking credit for it when it happened.
Oh, of course.
That was bad.
Well, it's all optics, and that's the frustrating part, because remember, what did Trump do? He sat in a big semi and honked the horn. And that was his, reconstruction. In this case, Joe Biden so what has to happen first is Congress has to pass the bill, and then the president enacts the bill. So first it has to go through Congress, and finally, it goes through Congress at the request of the president. So president wants an infrastructure bill, and Congress debates on what it's going to look like. And finally, they got something to pass. And yes, there were Republicans who were fighting against the bill, but when it finally passed, it was like, well, it only passed because I got this in there. And it was like, well, no, you didn't. You fought it till the end, and that's where the frustration is, because you can't say, oh, I didn't support it right up until the end, and then it only passed because I decided to support it at the last minute. But in the reality of it is, a lot of them didn't support it, and they voted against it, but they still took credit for well, and I think what they took credit for too was whittling it down, because some of it was whittled down, and that's the frustrating part, because it takes those regulations that are meant to protect the consumer and protect the employee, and that unfortunately comes at a cost to the employer and the shareholder, which is a problem.
Last month, you were at FIU and you presented a check for $650,000 to help small businesses at FIU. But you voted against the bill that gave the money that you then signed a check for and handed and had a photo op, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, right? You voted against that bill.
Right now, you have to give me more details, but I do know that every time I have an opportunity to bring money to my constituents, I do so. I just did $400,000. But look,
but you voted against the Chips and Science Act, right?
Listen, right now I need to ask my staff.
Also passed once in a generation investment in our nation's roads, highways, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water system, high-speed internet. We got a little help from Republicans, but not a lot, but enough to get it passed. But the truth is, there are a lot more Republicans taking credit for that bill than we actually voted for it. I see them out there, and now we're going to build this new bridge here. We're all for it. And by the way, this new road, and we're going to have an internet that's going to be all the way. I love it, man.
So he passed a lot of stuff that helped recover the economy and help rebuild our infrastructure. And that's kind of, his legacy in terms of his presidency. It would have been helping out at the border, but this is the crazy part.
They did want to pass the strongest
is the nuts thing. Like, we got to a point where we were so desperate to appease that crowd, the one that wanted the border secure, because all that funding, all that stuff was already passed in the Trump administration to secure the border. So we have tons of money going to the border. Now it's a matter of how do we spend it, right? And so Joe Biden's like, well, we've got the money there. He requests, let's pass a bill that gets done what's already, being presented by the Republicans, and let's try to lighten it up a little bit so that there's some empathy behind it, and let's do things, right, if we're going to do it at all. And the Republicans were like, oh, that's cool. But then there were some that were like, well, they were all, that's cool. And then there was one person in particular that was like, nah, dude, don't do that. And who was that? Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
He came out and said, no, don't support that bill because that's what he's running on. If we secure the border, then he has no way. Because what's his message? The immigrants are all coming across.
Everybody who comes on this floor and says our border's broken, we should do something about it. You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we didn't get there. President Trump opposed a Senate bill. We couldn't find a better way forward.
I mean, let's look at Obama's policies. He deported many, many people, and that's people who committed crimes. Why would we deport the non-violent people that are here that we are taking advantage of in terms of our economy because they're cheap labor? That's what we use them for. So the other thing I want to talk about that he did that was positive, student loan. So first of all, okay, let's back up. He offered protections for DACA. Let's start with that. He did. So he's protecting people that are already here and that deserve to be here. And that is one of those things that Donald Trump kind of has in his scope of things he wants to kill. So he wants to deport like everybody. That's one of the other thing he's kind of running on, this idea that he's going to have the biggest mass deportation ever. And so if you don't know, DACA is like around 500,000 kids that were brought over as young children illegally. And they were minors, so they didn't have any say.
What is DACA? DACA is the acronym for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
And when they got here, they're illegal.
And they became a drain on our system.
Exactly. So they grew up in our communities, and they're essentially citizens that grew up, non-citizens that grew up here in the United States that were brought over without their real consent. Their parents decided it for them. And so Obama made it a law that they cannot be deported because they're kids or dreamers that don't speak Spanish, that have never been to wherever they came from, their home country, since they left. And Trump wants to deport them back to their home country. Bye, Felicia. Bye, Felicia. The next thing, he expanded healthcare. The thing that Trump tried to kill, Obamacare, healthcare for everybody, making it really hard for people to sign up, stuff like that, trying to kill it. But since the funding was already there and Congress basically had to just keep funding it, they kept doing that and people kept signing up. So Trump wasn't able to fully kill it. And so he was able to resurrect it.
And wasn't there something that he was trying to cap, like $2,000 a month for, was it insulin?
Oh, yeah. So he changed things so that we're able to negotiate with healthcare. Healthcare drug prices are now negotiable by the government because before companies could come to the government and say, hey, we have a drug. And Congress has passed a law that says you cannot buy generic. You have to buy name brand. And we set the prices, not you. So drug companies are able to set these prices ridiculously high. And so in some countries where they get insulin for $20, in America, you pay $375 for insulin or $3,075 depending on your insurance. Insurance is a scam. And that's the other thing. Coming down to it, what needs to happen is people are tired of the status quo. We need to change some serious systemic changes. And one of the things I think we need to change is our insurance infrastructure. We need to get rid of it. We don't need insurance. We are at a point where we as a community should have the capability to take care of ourselves. Like everybody. Like insurance, because the problem is insurance is once you need insurance, the insurance company's goal is not to meet your needs, it's to meet their needs. And so you get into this realm of accountability and timelines and loopholes and tricks where they try to make it so they don't have to pay you out. And people who are none the wiser get taken advantage of, and people who are the wiser don't, or people who have money don't because they can afford a lawyer who is the wiser, if that makes sense. So we need to get rid of just insurance companies. But what Obama, and that's kind of what Obama is doing here, is not getting rid of insurance companies, but trying to make things accessible and fair. And one of the things that we need to do is make generics available for people, Medicare and Medicaid, and allow those entities to negotiate those prices at a fair market value, because that was not the case before. Regulations that are there to protect the consumer is what he added. Now, if a Republican gets into office, those regulations go away and those prices go back up. Why? Because it's about the money, not about the person. Right? Capitalism, right? Well, and that's what we're always grappling with. Do we want someone who's going to put capitalism first? And to some degree, Joe Biden has done that. Go back to his rail situation. He has decided to put the workers back to work, because if we stop the rails, the economy stops, and that hurts everybody. Well, that's the point of the strike. Force the company or the rail companies back into negotiations and force them to make a deal that's fair. Jesus.
Question.
Possible answer.
Jumping into another Joe Biden decision, aiding our ally Israel with weaponry to commit genocide among the Palestinians, just to get the terrorists that are hiding and using those poor civilians as shields.
It's a hard place that needs more research. But from what I have researched, right, we've been providing Israel with aid for a very long time. And the reason why is because they're one of our only allies in that area. And they're surrounded by people who want to kill them. And Iran has been funding all of these, terrorist organizations around Israel. So really, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, there's a lot of them. And that's the problem, is because that's why the United States has to give the aid to Israel, is because Iran has been funding this war against Israel by all these terrorist organizations. And so what happens if Israel gets taken over?
The Middle East has been a show for thousands of years, and it's going to be a shit show long after we're gone.
Right. Well, and what would happen if Israel were taken over? Do you think?
Not our problem.
Well, okay. No, it's not our problem. But if Palestine then has no enemy to go after, who are they going to go after? Are they just going to stop?
Egypt. They don't like Egyptians.
That's true.
Egyptians don't like them.
That's true.
They always fight with each other. Like I said, it'll just keep going.
It would just keep going.
Yeah. So let's not give them any more weaponry until they do what we tell them.
I mean, I could be okay with that. I think it's a crapshoot, is what it is. Student loan relief, and this is crazy, and I fell victim to this, especially kids, millennials, took out a bunch of student loans, and the government loans were at a high interest rate. And I took out loans in that time, and we weren't really prepared for how the ballooning cost of education. When I was in college, it cost $35,000 a year to go to school. That's a lot, and that was not including room and board. And I was fortunate that I had like scholarships and whatnot, but I left with a significant amount of loans, like $80,000 in loans. But I knew people who were going out with like $100,000, $120,000 in loans. How are you going to pay that off on a teacher salary? Right? Over the course of a year, like inflation has gone up, the cost of a house has gone up exponentially, right? But let's say the cost of a house was $125,000 maybe like 50 years ago, and a teacher's salary was $60,000. Coming to now, that same house is worth $500,000. The teacher's salary is $65,000. Like, how's a teacher supposed to afford to pay back these loans, right? So a lot of these people got into those, and then they had these rules that changed that said that you can just pay back 10% of what you are making. That way you're not breaking the bank having to pay back your loans every month. And so a lot of people took advantage of that, but they weren't paying on principal then. They were just paying on the interest. And so they were starting to just accrue interest, or by the time they got to a point where they could start paying on the stuff, it was like 10, 20 years later, and their loans hadn't moved. They were still at like $100,000. It's insane. It took me 8 years to pay off my loans. And for a while, some of them were at like 6 and 8% interest, which is crazy. I eventually consolidated them down when I had around 40,000 left, and I consolidated them down with a private company, and that was about 3% interest, which was better. But the government was charging me 8% on my student loans, and I was like, this is crazy. I also wasn't very well educated about finances.
You learned the hard way.
Yeah, I did. So Joe Biden passed some legislation reallocating funds to cancel some of that student loan debt.
And that pissed off the extreme right again.
Of course. Well, because these people, they knew they were taking out loans, and why shouldn't they have to pay for it? Well, the reality of it is why is because it goes back to, were they fair loans given out with good intentions? No.
Yeah, for my master's, I'm going to have to get a student loan.
Right. Yeah. So the last thing he's done for our country is finally recognizing that he is maybe at an age where he should let go and retire. Because if you look at, like, say, for instance, when Obama was done, he was surfing. I don't think Joe's going to be surfing.
He's napping.
Exactly. And
he deserves it.
He deserves a few years of relaxation. If he went for another 4 years as presidency, he probably wouldn't make it. And I get the idea that he wants to go out on top, but that's not good for America. And I think he recognized that. Or at least he came to the realization of that.
Do you think the way the media handled it, that debate that we're going to watch, the clips of, do you think the media was kind to Joe, or they?
No, I don't think the media was kind to Joe. I think they were vultures.
Opportunists.
Well, opportunists in the fact that he had a bad performance, and they saw the opportunity to heckle him until he dropped out, so that we could get a new candidate.
Power-hungry Democrats too.
Absolutely, is exactly what happened, and I think that that's the way these things are played.
But that's also nature.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly the way it should be played.
In the animal kingdom, the older animal that's getting weaker and sickly gets sacrificed for the greater good. And Joe was sacrificed.
Right. Well, let's go back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think we all kind of learned our lesson. We saw what happened when somebody, was at an age where they should retire.
Right.
and it feels wrong to say it, but it sounds like the quiet part out loud. But let's be real here. Like, there's a time when you should
throw in the towel.
Throw in the towel or take a step back, and you can still advise and you can still be there in some capacity, but you have to recognize that
your job is done.
Your job is done.
Ruth did not think Trump was going to win, and her ignorance became detrimental to our country.
Mm-hmm.
The debate.
All right, the debate. Are you ready to watch this?
Tim has seen the debate.
I watched the debate live because I knew that I had to explain it to my students the next day.
And I've been saving myself for you.
Oh, boy.
I haven't seen it. So we have a video here that has the highlights of the debate. It's not the full debate. It's just enough for our show.
It was like watching your kid go up on stage for a school play and they forget the lines because they haven't been practicing. Although Joe was practicing. Let's be real, he was. I'm going to tell you my issues with the debate because the debate was rough.
Okay, so I'm going to click play. We're all going to watch this together with me.
Okay.
It's just a few minutes.
And since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office.
First thing he needed to do.
Continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
Let's pause that. Okay, so if I'm seeing there, his stuttering problem. His voice is weaker.
So let's talk about that. What do we know about before this debate? He was practicing. He was practicing, and he clearly sounds like he has been talking forever and he's lost his voice. There was no preparation for that. Somebody on his team should have come out and said, he's suffering from a hoarse voice. Be prepared for him to sound like this. He came out on stage, and we were just like, oh, he sounds old.
Well, to counter that, his voice has not changed that much since this debate. His voice is weaker. You can blame it on the recent COVID, but
but this in particular, this is not normal.
Well, no.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody prepared us for that voice. That's not his normal. Even now, yeah, it might still sound weaker, but it doesn't sound like this.
Right.
This sounds like he's been talking for a while. And what was the second thing you said?
Well, his stuttering. But he's always had the stuttering problem.
Yeah.
He's going to fumble his words. He's always fumbled them, like my dog with the ball.
Right. And so what it sounds like is he has been practicing a bunch of talking points, and he kind of got a talking point mixed up in his head. And yeah.
All right. Now let's hear what the orange turd's going to say.
President Trump? I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
That's a zinger.
Right. So, and that's one of the things that was actually a problem for Trump, is because a lot of his base loves it, but most of Americans that they're looking to try to get, or at least on the Trump side, they're trying to grab that independent. They don't like that. And so his one job during this debate was to let Joe Biden eat himself alive, which he could have done and just not say anything.
But he was still a dick.
That's the thing. He can't help it.
Yeah. But it was a good zinger.
Sure, it was a good zinger, but at the same time, it was one that probably did more damage to him than it did to Joe Biden.
That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2%.
Here's a talking point. Don't forget, this has got all your stats.
25%, either one of those numbers. They've raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we can...
See, he's got a grandstand speech that he's prepared that he got mixed up, and he...
Yeah.
And he went down the wrong avenue.
With the COVID,
he's trying to figure out where he's at, and he can't go back. This was hard to watch.
This is painful.
If we finally beat Medicare.
We finally beat Medicare.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare. Because
and that's the thing. He over-prepared.
Social Security, they're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting.
It's them going back and forth. At one point, they're arguing over whether or not they have who has more strokes on their golf game. It's dumb.
It's heartbreaking, though.
It is heartbreaking.
Why did Biden's team let him go out there? They had to have known.
Maybe. That's a conspiracy.
Do you think they set him up for failure? His own team?
Maybe.
His wife?
You think his wife did it? Why would you go to his wife?
Well, because she's the first lady, and she's like Nancy with regards to Ronald. Nancy was calling the shots.
You think that she's calling the shots?
Oh, absolutely. If he's this far down the declining road,
why is it her that's calling the shots? Why not like other people in this administration?
Like who?
I don't know. Why does it have to be Nancy
or Jill?
Jill.
Weird.
Huh?
You've been over prepping for this podcast. I don't know. I think they don't turn him into a sacrificial lamb.
Possibly. Well, and that's is that what happened? Or was Joe just like they're going, no, I got to keep practicing, or was his team hounding him, and like did he lose his you just have so many questions, like who dropped the ball in that? Because again, it's about preparation. If we would have known that he was going to come out there sounding this hoarse.
You can see the decline of Joe Biden in just 5 years with these debate comparison clips from 2019 and 2024.
I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights, and those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
He wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare to
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I oppose.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?
It would have been a different, because one of the things that I had an issue with is at the beginning, I couldn't understand a word he was saying because it was sounding like this, words, it sounded a hoarse voice. And it was quiet. You just couldn't hear it. It was just like, and it sucked because, like, if I would have known, I would have prepared myself to be listening a little closer. But then I was just like, I have to translate this.
Poor man. He's dying.
The media after this whole thing tore him apart because it was like, oh my God, look at him. He had a senior moment. But was it a senior moment? Well, yeah, it was. But at the same time, it shows you how much this whole process is taking a toll on him. It shows how much the presidency is taking a toll on him. And could he last another 4 years?
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't know if he can last the next few months.
Well, I think he could last another 4 years and beyond if he were just doing something that didn't require so much stress.
Yeah, no surfing, Joe.
No.
Now, who's the old one?
Well, Donald Trump. And it goes back to what Nikki Haley said, right? Whoever gets rid of their 80-year-old first is going to win the election. And they might be right, because I think that once Joe Biden decided to take that step down, everybody kind of had this sigh of relief. Because let's be real, Joe, at this point, one of the frustrating things is that he's stepping in it all the time. It's not like one gaffe here and there. It's like everything all the time. And Donald Trump is the same way. And we're all just kind of tired of both of them stepping in it all the time. And now here we have a candidate all of a sudden that's not just going to step in it all the time.
Right. Who doesn't have issues.
Right. I'm sure she might have some issues.
Nothing like Hillary.
Not our first choice, maybe, but in this case, I think our best choice.
Is Donald Trump going to debate her?
I don't know.
I don't think he will. I think he's scared.
You don't think he will?
It's not. He's going to be bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Maybe. I think that, again, he'll come back with the... Ooh, nice catch. He'll come back with the argument that Joe Biden won the primary of the Democratic primary, so it should be him that is running. So why would he debate Kamala? But to be fair, he dropped out and Kamala was his running mate. So that makes sense. So I don't think he has a lot of legal ground and all this suing. But that's his modus operandi. He takes advantage of the legislative branch of the government.
And the judicial branch, apparently. See our last podcast.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I said the legislative branch. I meant to say the judicial branch. Thank you for correcting me. My brain is mush. But that is also a symptom of my condition of narcolepsy.
Or old age.
Or old age, because I'm getting old. I'm 35.
Well, on that note, it's now...
It's now time to quiz Tim. Let's quiz Tim. You're going to say it to me, and you're going to get a big smile on your face. Big,
and now
gay
it's
smile.
Time
there it is.
Let's quiz Tim.
Oh, boy. You have that ridiculous looking graphic of me where I look like Ox from like Stripes on the cover of that magazine at the end where it says, win a dream date with Ox. And I'm like, no girl out there wants to win a dream date with Ox.
But why does it have to be a girl?
Oh, you're right. Well, because it was Stripes, and that was a long time ago, and that was before people were woke. Have you seen that movie? It's pretty gross, actually.
When did Joe Biden begin public serving?
1968.
The answer is 1970.
1970?
Yeah. He was elected to the Newcastle County Council, and then the Senate in 1972. He's been in politics for 54 years. What state was Joe Biden born in?
Pennsylvania, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And what was his father's job in Pennsylvania?
He was a car salesman.
Yeah. Is Joe Biden the oldest president ever?
No. Yes. Of course he is. Look at him.
How many children did Joe Biden have?
Joe Biden had 3. 4.
Name them.
Bo, Hunter, his daughter,
Ashley,
and Miranda. I don't know. Naomi.
How many times has Joe Biden run for president?
I want to say like 3, 2. But can I tell you when he first ran for president?
Okay. What year was that?
As a makeup, 1988.
You are correct.
The year I was born.
Yep. He pursued the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination, but withdrew.
Shows how old he is.
It was revealed that parts of his campaign stump speech had been plagiarized from British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Oh, do better than that. Whoever you hired to write that speech sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got fired.
And then his second was 2008, and it never gained momentum.
There you go.
So he withdrew after placing 5th in the Iowa Democratic Caucus in January.
In the Iowa caucuses. Right in the caucuses.
And, look how well he's done. And now look how well Kamala is doing.
That's true. Next question.
That was it.
That was it?
Yeah.
These are getting short. Let's trigger Rictor real quick. Here's my trigger, Rictor. Donald Trump has said that if he wins, he will be a dictator on day 1. Now, given the Supreme Court's decisions, he now has the capability to do that. But people have said, no, that's just a joke. He's not really serious. Do you believe him?
Everything he says, yes, I believe him. He's telling people right now that they don't need to vote. He's got all the votes. And then he's also telling Christians that they need to vote this one time only, and then they won't ever have to vote again. He's going to have it all fixed.
Could this be America's last election if Donald Trump wins? Listen to what the former president told a Christian group at the Turning Point USA Believers Summit in West Palm Beach. The former president telling the crowd that if they re-elect him to the White House, they won't have to worry about voting ever again.
And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
He said it 3 times. Now, the Harris for President campaign releasing this statement after the former president's speech tonight, saying, quote, America can do better than the bitter, bizarre, and backward-looking delusions of criminal Donald Trump. Vice President Kamala Harris offers a vision for America's future focused on freedom, opportunity, and security.
And that's because he has people put in place in certain states to help try and overturn this next election. Rachel Maddow talked about it on this past Monday.
Right, so they've already set up the election.
He just can't keep his mouth shut.
Well, okay.
He keeps showing his Trump card.
Yeah.
You're supposed to keep that card hidden. You're not supposed to, blabber it. Yeah.
What do you think he's going to do when he gets into office, if he gets into office?
I don't even want to imagine. I can't even imagine.
If you had to imagine.
Oh.
Do you think he'd actually kill people?
Yes. He stood by and watched what happened on January 6th. Ashley Babbitt got killed. Our police officers were getting wounded and hurt. Yes.
Do you think that his rhetoric right now and the way that he is setting up his
it's all about
followers to is he setting up the election like he did for January 6th again?
Yes. It's going to be the revenge tour.
Right. And already in the past few months, he's been having that kind of rhetoric that he had before, where it's, if I win, it's because it's not rigged, but if I don't win, the only way I'm going to lose is if it's stolen. He's starting to use that language again. And so we are getting to a point here, yes, where we narrowly avoided catastrophe because we had a riot that took over the Capitol because people lost their faith in the integrity of the election because people said it was stolen. The integrity of our election right now is in jeopardy. And so when we have this election, if Kamala Harris comes out on top, what's going to happen when Trump decides to say, hey, it's rigged? Are his followers going to say, yeah, it is. We're going to take your word for it, and we're going to go take the Capitol again? Or are they going to say, okay, let's not let this happen? Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they know.
Hopefully.
They know what's coming.
Well,
Last time we didn't.
Well, but
it was the first.
Our
coup
government
in our
is
history.
prepared where? Because each state has to prepare their own election, and this could go not. It could be a fight within a state. Right? You have one state that's there, and then they sue saying that, oh, Joe Biden won the primary in this state. He has to be on the ballot. And so Kamala Harris can't be on the ballot. So what do they do then when the state rules, because they're very conservative, that that's the case, and now all these people can't vote for Joe Biden or for Kamala Harris?
That's election interference.
Is it?
That is, yeah.
But would it be in the state's rights to do that because they get to run their own elections?
Not when it comes to the presidency.
Yeah, they do.
Not when it comes to the presidency. Sounds kind of scary.
It is. Because the whole voting system is very fragile. It's very effective. And it's difficult because parts of it were called into question, especially when COVID hit, because we had a different situation that affected the process of the election. People couldn't stand in lines. In states where you're required to stand in line, you had to do social distancing, and then you had to do it in certain hours. And you had people who were like, well, let's just extend the timeline so that we can get more votes in. But what I see the frustration is that states were like, well, we'll give an extra week for people to mail in their ballots. What the Republicans are saying is, well, if you give them an extra week, that's just you guys going out and trying to get more Democratic votes. So you're extending it until you get enough Democratic votes that you win. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because anybody could be voting their Republican or Democrat. We're just extending the hours that they can vote, or the time that they can vote. But right now, in a lot of those states, a lot of those measures are being taken away, and voting is being restricted. So it's going to be difficult to vote in a lot of these states. A lot of them, notably, will already be red, but in some that swing, like Georgia and Texas, maybe even Florida, voter restriction is a very real thing, because it can make a huge difference in the outcome of the election.
So you got me curious about them withholding Kamala Harris being put on the ballot. 48 out of 50 states told CNN on Friday that Vice President Kamala Harris would have no problem appearing on ballots in November as her party's presidential candidate. But Florida was not among them.
Told you. I told you. Of course, Florida.
But election experts see no way for Florida to try and keep Harris off the ballot, since Democrats have not yet held... Where did it go?
The Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
The DNC.
So let's say Kamala wins by a landslide with the popular vote and electoral vote, but then there's the one state, let's say Florida, is withholding their electoral votes for whatever reason.
Sure.
It'd be great if she doesn't need Florida to still win.
It would be great if
that
we
could happen.
Got to that point where she didn't need Florida to win. It would be very nice.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get there, but maybe we will. Maybe we will.
I don't think it's going to be close. Not now. Unless she does or says something fundamentally, profoundly stupid.
Right. It's one of those things where we're just kind of waiting for her to have a gaffe, and it's
hopefully it doesn't happen.
Well, the problem is Donald Trump just has gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. Look at what he said about black people on national.
Yeah.
What was he on?
The National Black Journalists Convention thing.
Yeah.
Conference.
Right. Calling into question Kamala Harris's blackness.
Yeah.
I mean, weird.
How is that even
weird.
an issue?
It's weird is what it is. It's weird, Rick. It's weird. That's the new term, weird.
I like how it's sticking.
I know. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun one. Because it's just true. It's weird.
Well, that's it for this episode of Break It Down with Rick and Tim. It was nice discussing our president, Joe Biden.
Yeah, it was.
We're sending him off.
En voyage.
We're sending him
off.
Voyage. We're sending him off like a Viking funeral.
Do they play a horn? I think they just blow like a big shell.
What's the sad trumpet?
Oh, sad horn.
You know, then when someone dies, the bugle. What is it?
Yeah, taps.
Yeah.
Sad song.
He's
not dead yet.
You know, when I saw him in person, I didn't care for him. I like him more now since I've gotten to know him and appreciate his empathy. It will be sad when he leaves us. The question is, will he leave us before Jimmy Carter or Jimmy Carter before him?
That's a good question.
You know,
well, and you know,
very easily
I don't think anybody dislikes him. I think he's a likable guy. I just think, again, like it's the signs are showing that he needs to take a step back because it's either he's going to, you know, he doesn't have the stamina to keep going.
Yeah,
it's too much, and it sucks that we have to recognize that, and people are going to get angry that we pointed out. But sometimes you just got to say the quiet part out loud and be like, dude, you deserve to just relax.
Yeah, and the next few months, he can get a lot of stuff done.
Sure. And he's already got a lot of stuff done. You can get a lot done in 4 years. And
he wants Supreme Court reform.
Right?
He wants 18-year term limits with the Supreme Court justices, an ethics commission.
All that stuff would be great.
But, you know, it's all lip service because he needs to have Congress.
We need to have Congress. That's the thing. If we can get back to like when Obama had Congress and all that stuff, but then he was like,
happen.
But that's the problem because here's the issue is because Obama was like, well, I want another 4 years. So I'm going to be bipartisan. And the problem is that in his first term, when he had everything, he wanted to be centrist. So he appeased, and then he lost.
Took advantage of that.
Well, he took advantage, and then he lost Congress.
Yeah,
and that was it.
Yeah, that was the beginning.
Done.
That was the beginning of the end.
It was. And if Obama would have gone in there and been like, "Look, we got the House, and the Senate, and we can do work." If he would have done work, his legacy would have been better. But it's the bipartisan bullshit that he was trying for that really screwed him over because
you can't play fair with these Republicans.
Well, and everybody at the end was like, well, Obama didn't really do what we wanted him to do, so we'll go back to voting for. He didn't grab enough people that wanted to see him keep going, and so Congress, people weren't motivated to go out and vote for that, and we lost Congress. You have to motivate people to go out and vote twice. It's not just for the presidential election. You have to give them Congress as well.
And your local elections as well.
And your local elections.
Yeah, so that you have representation.
That.
So the next episode of Break It Down with Rick and Tim will be about President-elect, hopefully, Kamala Harris.
Right, and maybe a little bit about election integrity and what it looks like. Tune in next week.
All right, so follow me on Twitter, x.com, whatever it is, Rictor_Riolo.
Follow me somewhere here.
And maybe Tim will check his Twitter.
Maybe.
Tim breaks it. What is it? Yours? What's yours?
Tim breaks it down?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, bye, Biden.
Folks, I have an incredible partner. The progress we've made, she's going to make one hell of a president.